This week on the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, from veterans rallying on the National Mall to postal workers fighting privatization, musicians lifting up migrants' voices, labor leaders warning against fascism and false unity, we bring you a snapshot of the urgent struggles and enduring solidarity shaping the working class today. On Labor Radio in Portland, hosts Michael and Elliott take a hard look at the first 100 days of a second Trump term, describing a relentless onslaught of executive orders, wage cuts, and attacks on federal workers.
Obviously, no one should have been getting rich working for the federal government, but it was absolutely a path to the middle class for working people. Taking a job that had good pay and benefits, and also, kind of most importantly, labor protections.
On the Heartland Labor Forum, Bill Fletcher Jr. warns against labor giving even tacit support to authoritarianism, reminding us there is no middle ground.
I don't think that the UAW, with all due respect, should have said anything about Trump's tariff proposal that could be interpreted in the least as even giving critical support. Any more than I would have thought that railroad workers in Italy should have praised Mussolini for making the trains run on time.
Working People joins a powerful protest on the National Mall, where veterans speak out against Trump's betrayal of their service and the gutting of VA protections.
Donald Trump is a draft dodger, and that man is insisting that we, the veterans, or the active duty military, march in front of him like puppets. And he is a draft dodger and a felon.
On the Labor Heritage Power Hour, Francisco Herrera says it plainly: migration strengthens a nation. His songs, rooted in struggle, become tools for organizing and survival.
We decided it's our job to bring us back to our senses based on truth. And one of those truths is that migration strengthens the nation. It's been the truth, it's still the truth today, and it's going to be the truth tomorrow.
And in the bipartisan buzz and the hothouse, letter carriers sound the alarm. Postal workers are under attack, facing rising violence, congressional inaction, and a push towards privatization.
Unfortunately, without fail, there's a new news story about a letter carrier either getting robbed or somebody who has gotten access to the tools that we use to deliver mail to steal from the public.
DeJoy was our postmaster general, and now that he quit, once he saw how the Postal Service operated, we won him over. And with Trump coming back in, he got out. And now they're bringing in a FedEx guy who's going to try to privatize us and turn us into a FedEx.
From the shop floor to the stage, from the picket line to the podcast mic, this is the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, available wherever you get your podcasts and at laborradionetwork.org. I'm Chris Garlock, and that's all coming up on this week's edition of the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly.
Welcome to Labor Radio on KBOO Portland. I am Michael Cathcart.
And I'm Elliott Gilliland.
Thank you so much for joining us. We would first just like to give a special thanks and shout out to the Labor Radio Podcast Network for hosting podcasted versions of our show each month. So today we are going to be diving into the effects of the first 100 days of the second Trump administration here. I mean, honestly, it feels like it's been way more than 100 days at this point.
Yes.
But it has been just over 100. So really, the relentless onslaught of shocking news, unhinged executive orders, and attacks on the public good during just these 100 days has been very much by design. It follows, a well-worn page of Steve Bannon's playbook. So basically by flooding the zone with chaos, you leave your opponents reeling and unable to mount a response to any single atrocity. You flood the zone with chaos and multiple atrocities and shocking news articles, and no one can focus on any one thing that you're attempting to do. And so really what unites the excesses of the authoritarian power being exercised by Trump and his regime is that they all represent new fronts in the waging of unrestricted class warfare against labor and working people. A strategy calibrated to really the interest of capital and the capitalist class. He's reduced workers' wages, made workplaces less safe, threatened workers' retirement savings by destabilizing the global economy, and gutted government offices that administer fundamental programs covering millions of people in the United States, such as Social Security and Medicare. And that's just to name, sort of the top level things that have happened. So today we're going to go into some of the more granular ways that this administration has attacked working people, both in their workplace and their means of earning a living, but also in their general safety, like the working class's safety in general. So first, we're going to look at the ways that they've directly attacked workers' wages. Most notably, the Trump regime has reduced the minimum wage for federal contractors, which could cost these lower wage workers anywhere from 25 to 60% in pay cuts. They've also repealed an order directing agencies to prioritize, quote, high road employers, which are basically employers that agree to pay workers the prevailing wage and provide benefits like paid leave and health insurance during the process of awarding federal contracts. So essentially, when any agency is looking to award a federal contract, they no longer have to select the option that would pay workers the highest or the best wages and provide the best benefits. They can go for the lowest, the bottom rung there if they want the lowest bid exclusively.
Yeah, and I think when somebody thinks about a governmental position, I think most of the time you're thinking about stability and some sort of environment in which you can kind of count on the work and the pay that's coming your way. And these are kind of the largest factors in drawing talent to the federal government. Before Trump and after Trump, you're never going to be able to earn the highest wages working at a federal agency than you could in the private sector. But at least in the past, you could kind of count on stability and more control of your work and life. And so, without these factors, not only does it hurt the short term, but, how does the government itself keep talent, train talent, to your point, especially when higher skill trades are not being, money's not being handed out to train those skills. It does not bode well for work getting done by the government itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a good point too, that, obviously no one should have been getting rich working for the federal government, but it was absolutely a path to the middle class for working people, taking a job that had good pay and benefits, and also, kind of most importantly, like labor protections. The federal sector, the public sector is the largest sector of union density in this country. But just like that was obviously the goal of any, MAGA president or, conservatives in general, is to destroy the last bastion of union strength, and that is in the federal workforce and the public sector. You've been listening to Labor Radio. I am Michael Cathcart.
And I'm Elliott Gilland.
Have a wonderful.
Welcome to the Heartland Labor Forum. Today, we're going to be talking about a controversial topic with the labor movement and the Trump administration. We're going to talk about the Trump tariffs and its effect on the auto industry and how they are going to possibly intersect with workers' rights and the consequences. The United Auto Workers has taken a firm stance, and to help us look at tariffs generally speaking, we are going to be on the phone with longtime labor activist, writer, and strategist Bill Fletcher Jr. He's got decades of experience fighting for workers' rights. Fletcher offers a unique perspective on how these tariffs might affect jobs, wages, and the global auto market and the workers' movement. Bill, welcome to the show.
Glad to be on board. Thank you.
Just sort of starting out, I wanted to talk to you today about the UAW has taken kind of a controversial position in terms of tariffs and its seeming alliance with the Trump administration. I wanted to talk to you today about tax policy, about tariffs, and how these things affect labor unions generally, and maybe not specifically about the UAW, but just how these things affect labor unions and the workers who make them up.
The way I feel about this, to be blunt, is that I don't think that the UAW, with all due respect, should have said anything about Trump's tariff proposal that could be interpreted in the least as even giving critical support. Any more than I would have thought that railroad workers in Italy should have praised Mussolini for making the trains run on time. I think that when you're in the political situation that we are in, with a growing fascist movement, the clear authoritarianism of this administration, that there really is no middle ground here. There's nothing, there's very little that Trump could do to please us other than to resign. And so I think that the UAW, with all due respect, and I mean, they've done some great things under Fain, but I think that they made a mistake. I think it was a misstep. One of the problems in the whole tariff discussion that some people in the mainstream media pointed out, and particularly on the issue of auto, is that it was Trump in his first administration who carried out the renegotiations with Canada and Mexico, and then returns in January and basically says all bets are off. That despite the agreement that we had, no, we don't like it anymore. All right, this becomes problematic. The other part of this that is problematic is that there is significant auto production in the United States. The UAW is concerned for good reason in terms of auto production in unionized facilities. But what we have been witnessing for the last 30, 40 years are the introduction of what are called foreign transplants. So you have these companies from around the world, like Nissan and Volkswagen and others, that have come to the United States in search of cheap labor. Right? They're coming here and they're producing cars here. This is about whether or not these companies should be unionized and should be up to scale with the rest of the auto industry, with the big three. And I don't see anything that Trump is suggesting that would raise the standard of living for U.S. auto workers, that would address this problem of the foreign transplants. And again, that's why I think, man, that this was a misstep on their part.
You have been listening to the Heartland Labor Forum, a show by and about workers, our workplaces, and our labor movement. We are radio that talks back to the boss.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to another on-the-ground edition of Working People, a podcast about the lives, jobs, dreams, and struggles of the working class today. My name is Maximilian Alvarez, and I am here on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. at the Unite for Veterans, Unite for America rally, where thousands of veterans from all military branches and age groups, union members, VA hospital nurses, elected officials, and more have gathered to send a message to the Trump administration.
I'm Peter Pocock. I'm out on the mall here in D.C. with a whole bunch of other veterans. I'm an old-timer. I'm pushing 80. I'll be 80 this year. I was in the Vietnam era. And happily for me, and intentionally for me, I was in the Navy because you were more likely to avoid bullets in the Navy. Yeah, we're out here on the mall today because the Veterans Administration, which takes care of a lot of us, myself included, I'm 90% disabled, and we can go into that later, but we're here because certain parties who are in the government are really trying to cut the hell out of what we have supposedly earned by our service over the years. Yeah, hear it from the podium, we're here to fight back. First of all, there's a whole lot of vets that actually are losing their jobs, particularly government jobs, we got a preference. That was one of our benefits of being in the service. We got a little bit of a preference for jobs coming out. And there's people who have been working for the government for 10, 20, 30 years who are being basically told, we don't need you anymore. Thank you very much. Actually, there's no thank you very much. Let's just go away. Not happy about that. What I got is Parkinson's disease. And it's generally attributed to the fact that I was exposed to Agent Orange during my service. My bet is that basically any of the folks that were in Southeast Asia in the late 60s and the early 70s all have been exposed to Agent Orange. And many of them will, if they haven't already, be displaying all kinds of symptoms because of it. In my case, Parkinson's. And I'm lucky that it didn't show up until late, so that I'm still, I'm going to make it to 80.
I'm Terry Henry. I live in Alexandria, Virginia. I'm here in Washington, D.C. today to protest the Trump administration's treatment of veterans. I am a veteran. I'm married to a Vietnam veteran. My father is a veteran. My brother is a veteran. I believe in veterans. My husband and I had nowhere to go after high school graduation. We weren't born with a silver spoon like Donald Trump. So we joined the military, and his two brothers joined as well. And we got our educations through the VA. So we are all college-educated people who were able to improve our lives by virtue of our military service. That would not have been a path open to me. Only marriage and children would have been open to me. I had no education and no way to earn a living. The military taught me skills, and I used those skills. And I believe in America. The other thing that happened is my husband got Agent Orange cancer from his Vietnam service. So we rely on the VA for his cancer treatment. If it had not been for the VA, I tell you, I would have had just a complete breakdown. But they were wonderful. They took him in, they gave him chemo. We never had to worry about a bill. Every American that gets cancer in America has to worry about how they're going to pay for their treatments. In the military, we never worried about that. We went to the doctor when we needed to go to the doctor, and they gave us what we needed. And they promised us that that care would continue after we left the military. And in my husband's case, it has. But now in the Trump administration, that care is threatened. These veterans are threatened. We've got new veterans, young veterans, Afghanistan veterans, Iraqi veterans, Vietnam veterans still alive. We need that care. You promised that care. Donald Trump is a draft dodger, and that man is insisting that we, the veterans, or the active duty military, march in front of him like puppets. And he is a draft dodger and a felon.
I'm Maximilian Alvarez. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Solidarity forever.
I'm Chris Garlock.
And I'm Elise Bryant.
And this is the Labor Heritage Power Hour,
a weekly radio show celebrating the cultural heritage of the American worker through music, poetry, history, and action.
Musician, organizer, and longtime activist Francisco Herrera joined Elise earlier this week to talk about the power of art and music in the struggle for justice.
From organizing day laborers and fighting ICE abuses to organizing a June 21st concert titled Migration Strengthens the Nation, Francisco is channeling the deep tradition of resistance music into direct action and community empowerment.
He shares the stories of grassroots solidarity, the realities on the ground in California, and how music, rooted in working-class voices, can be both a rallying cry and a healing force.
Hello, Francisco. Welcome. How are you, my brother?
Hello, Elise. Doing good, very well, in the midst of many.
Tell us about the concert.
We decided the right wing is fomenting hysteria based on lies. And we decided it's our job to bring us back to our senses based on truth. And one of those truths is that migration strengthens the nation. It's been the truth. It's still the truth today. And it's going to be the truth tomorrow. So what we're doing is bringing together music to celebrate our strengths as working people as migrant people, but primarily as working people, and organizing our future. So the concert has twofold, and that is to really, the songs are about the fruit vendor, the hotel worker, the songs that have been born on the picket line and born in the process of recognizing who we are as working people. It's a lot of fun. So musically speaking, it's going to be a great concert with really accomplished musicians that are forming the Caminante band. And then the second piece is to use it as an organizing tool. So the program will have resources. The program would be more of a resource guide. And then from there, we're launching a campaign to raise funds for our bail fund and processing fee funds we're helping people do their political asylum. Caminante has actually helped 149 people get themselves out of detention, immigration detention, just by guiding them, go to the library, get this form, fill it out, contact your sponsor, and 149 people get, without a lawyer, just get themselves out of detention. So that's the kind of work.
So that's action that people in your community are taking in lieu of these raids in California and across.
Obviously, this whole issue with the immigration is coming up because they've had 2 raids here. Last Tuesday, 15 people at the court, at the immigration court, and then the previous Tuesday they took another 4 or 5 people in the immigration court. Yeah, so it's forming, and each county has now a rapid response number. San Francisco, Alameda County, Santa Clara County, Sonoma County. All of these have a rapid response number for people to inform each other and support each other.
Okay, my brother. I know that you've been on many picket lines in support of workers. And so for you to get up at dark 30 in the morning to come and be on this radio show, it's a real gift, and I really appreciate it.
Take good care.
No tenemos que mostrar ningún papel, no tenemos que decirle nada a nadie, menos a la migra, menos a la migra. Y si la agarran, usted ya sabe qué hacer. Tenemos derecho de mantener silencio, tenemos derecho de hablarle a un abogado, no tenemos que firmar ni un documento, porque es seguro para la deportación.
You're listening to the Bipartisan Buzz, the official podcast of the Colorado State Association of Letter Carriers, and I am one of your co-hosts, Richard Byrne, the president of the Colorado State Association of Letter Carriers. I'm joined by Simon Kill, your director of education. How you doing, Simon?
I'm doing well, Rick.
Some of these pieces of legislation have almost seemed to grow stagnant. And one of those that is very frustrating that just seems to have stalled both in the House and the Senate is the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act. And we talked about this last Thursday on Coffee with Letter Carriers, and it seems we're in a pause. I mean, it's so critical, it's so important, but right now we're at 127 co-sponsors in the House and 7 co-sponsors in the Senate. And it's been in that area on both sides for quite a while. I mean, out of 100 senators, we have 7 co-sponsors. And it's bipartisan support. Appreciate that. I mean, very thankful for that. But the magic number in the House is 218, and we're sitting at 127. So we really need to make sure that we contact those legislators. And I mean, we're doing great here in Colorado. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're not in Colorado, check with your representatives or your senators and reach out to them and ask them why they are not on this critical piece of legislation. I mean, and this legislation would tremendously help with that. But I mean, Simon, are you hearing the same thing out there?
Yeah, Rick. It's saddening to see. Every day, one of my habits is to just type in postal news on a Google search and see what pops up. And unfortunately, without fail, there's a new news story about a letter carrier either getting robbed or somebody who has gotten access to the tools that we use to deliver mail to steal from the public. And it's for the letter carrier to have to endure that while we are providing the service that we were hired to do. It's not acceptable by any definition. It's confusing as to why there's not more traction in something like this. The ultimately it's the constituents that get hurt. And we need to be the voice of that for those constituents, right? We need to get this piece of legislation in front of our representatives. We need to use the fact sheets. We need to explain why it's important, why it's not just a postal priority, why it doesn't just affect letter carriers, how it affects the general public in the greater sense. And we need to make sure that that understanding is there so the appropriate decisions can be made.
All right, Simon. Well, I appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Bipartisan Buzz.
Welcome back to the Hot House with Richie Ray, because I'm always in a hot house. Brothers and sisters, how is everybody doing? We're going to be talking about some serious issues, and I got a brother and a sister on here from Illinois. Am I right? I got the state right, right?
Yeah, Illinois.
All right. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Let everybody know who you are, and we'll get started.
Sarah, you can go first.
All right, I'm Sarah Kurkowski. I am a steward and one of the assistant letter carrier political fund coordinator at our branch 4016 in Illinois. Ken?
Okay, I guess that's my cue to go then.
That's your cue.
My name is Ken Pratt out of 4016, Region 3. I am the letter carrier political fund coordinator, and I also am a LICO as well for the state. So we're here to push out the issues that's going on with politics, which is a game many people don't like to play, but like my brother Richie said in one of his videos, we have to play it.
All right, I'm just going to go right at it. I'm going to be an idiot because I've been on a job for 25 years, right? And every year or every other year, this is it. This is it. This is happening. This is real. This is real. Explain to everybody right now how real this really, really is right now. Because from what I understand and what I'm being told, this is not, that fear factor to put money in the PAC fund. This is the real deal. They're coming after us seriously. They're one signature away of erasing everything. This is not a joke this time around. This is not that what if or it's sitting there and being played with conversations and debated. This is done with debate. This is ready to go and be put in law. Explain to everybody how serious this really is.
It's not a joke. I mean, Trump has been coming for us since his first term as president. That's why DeJoy was our postmaster general. And now that he quit, once he saw how the Postal Service operated, we won him over. And with Trump coming back in, he got out. And now they're bringing in a FedEx guy who's going to try to privatize us and turn us into a FedEx. Even if we deliver primarily parcels, we still have to be a service. But he's coming for us. Put us in the budget, even though we have nothing to do with his budget, is like telling us directly, I'm coming for you.
Anyway, I think we did a good job tonight. So hopefully everyone's listening. I hope you people realize, I know politics is boring. I hate it too. but it's part of our jobs. Love you all. Be safe. Peace out.
Up next is time for our regular roundup with Harold Phillips, the voice behind our social media. Harold spotlights a fresh batch of shows you should know, highlighting the incredible diversity of voices on the Labor Radio Podcast Network. Take it away, Harold.
Thanks, Chris. Social media guy Harold Phillips here again, folks. And if you're a long-term listener to the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, you've probably heard me say this before. But one of the things I love about the Labor Radio Podcast Network is the diversity. No matter your particular point of view or political bent, I can bet that there is some show on the network that speaks to you. And I can bet that you can find shows on the network that'll open your eyes to other points of view. Want to see what I mean? Check out these shows you should know for the week of June 15th. Phil and Ed talk about how WGN Radio's Kevin McDonough is participating in the 11th annual Pat Mac Ride, the mass at Rate Field, the death of Officer Crystal Rivera, and more on the Workers' Mic. Next Generation Carriers shares a Valley Labor Report interview with Mark Divenstein, and Carrie and Julio join John to discuss current events at the U.S. Postal Service. Madison Labor Radio shares stories on group health cooperative workers rallying for union recognition, Meriter hospital nurses, and Harvard dining hall leaders discussing their successful strikes, the president of SEIU California and other union members being targeted in protests against ICE abductions, and more. Another show took on ICE this week. Jim, Linda, and Mark look at events in Los Angeles and Spokane, Washington surrounding ICE and hear from several of the participants of the Spokane ICE protest on Voice of the People. And Working Voices shares interviews from a rally for childcare workers, talks to Lawrence Saxon about what he does as a labor attorney, explores the Pullman strike of 1894, and more. And, of course, you know where to find links to all these shows and over 200 more, right? Just go to laborradionetwork.org. And if you want to find out what these shows and the other labor radio shows and podcasts in the network are talking about, be sure to follow us on social media at Labor Radio Net, on Blue Sky, and on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. For now. Okay, Chris, back to you. And hey, folks, don't be afraid to listen to some opposing viewpoints. You never know what you might learn.
And that's a wrap for this week's edition of the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, your roundup of highlights from the more than 200 shows across the Labor Radio Podcast Network where working people's voices come first. You'll find links to all the shows we've featured and many more at laborradionetwork.org. And you can follow the conversation using the hashtag LaborRadioPod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Got feedback? Want to get involved? Drop us a line, info@laborradionetwork.org. And remember, you don't need a mic to be part of the network. Support the movement and look good doing it. Check out our union-made t-shirts available in 2 colors and all sizes at laborradionetwork.org. This podcast recorded under a SAG-AFTRA collective bargaining agreement, edited this week by Captain Swing, produced by me, and as always, our social media wizard is Harold Phillips. For the Labor Radio Podcast Weekly, I'm Chris Garlock. Stay active, stay tuned, and we'll see you all next week.